showing his selfishness. I'm questioning his love and unsure about our future. Single decision could unravel so much of my life. At 24, everything figured out when I moved in with my boyfriend, Mark. He's 35, mature, stable, and seemed like the perfect partner when we met through mutual friends too. Our relationship started off strong. I was enchanted by his wisdom, his calm demeanor. Have his life together, something I aspired to achieve myself. 5 months ago, I packed my belongings and left behind my small cozy apartment to move into his. It felt like the natural next step for us. Growing commitment. His apartment was significantly larger, situated in a quiet neighborhood with everything we needed within walking. It had an air of stability and permanence, a stark contrast to my transient lifestyle. At first, living together was blissful. Watching our favorite shows. But things took a turn when Mark started his new job 3 months ago, a job that required him to work overnight shifts. Our relationship of comfort and well-being. Mark's job means he comes home anywhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., exhausted and in desperate need of rest. To ensure he gets the sleep he needs, he asked me to leave our bedroom when he comes in. At first I tried to be understanding. I knew his job was demanding and that he needed his sleep. But as days turned into weeks, our bedroom is perfect for sleeping, dark, quiet, and cool, thanks to the blackout curtains that block out the morning sun. But when I'm banished to the living room, it's a different story. The brightness of the early morning light floods the space. The couch, which is more of a love seat, is too small and uncomfortable, and the floor is too hard on my body. We do have an air mattress, but with our playful cat, it's just a matter of time before it gets punctured. Despite my discomfort, Mark insists that I'm being selfish for wanting to stay in the bedroom. He says that my presence makes the room too hot, and my movements disturb his sleep. But what about my sleep? What about my comfort? It feels incredibly unfair that I'm the one making all the sacrifices, while he refuses to compromise. We talked about buying a proper couch, but he doesn't want to contribute financially, because, in his words, I'm the one who wants it. I'm at my wit's end. Longer I can keep sacrificing my sleep and comfort for him. It's not just about the lack of rest. It's about feeling unheard, unappreciated, and undervalued in our. How did we get here? And more importantly, how do we move forward from this? The shift tonight, work for Mark, started as a necessary career move, a way to climb the ladder in his. But as the weeks rolled on, it became apparent that the night shifts were doing more than just disrupting his sleep. They were disrupting our. Mark needs absolute darkness and silence to sleep after his shifts. His body is already out of sync with the natural rhythm of. And even the slightest disturbance can make it impossible for him to rest. I understood that. I really did. But understanding didn't make it any easier when he started asking me to leave bedroom between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. so he could sleep undisturbed. At first, I wanted to support him, and I thought I could manage. It hit hard. Our living room, in stark contrast to our perfectly dark bedroom, is flooded with light in the early morning. We don't have blackout curtains there, and the sunlight pours in relentlessly, making it almost impossible. Prolonged periods. It's too short to stretch out on, and there's no way to find a position that doesn't leave me aching and stiff. The floor is out of the question. It's far too hard and unforgiving on my body. We do have an air mattress. Liability than a solution. Our cat, curious and playful as ever, has already punctured. And it's only a matter of time. Every morning, I find myself wrestling with these makeshift sleeping arrangements, trying to catch a few more precious hours of sleep, but it's not just the physical discomfort. Resentment and frustration. Each morning that I'm forced out of our bedroom feels like another notch on the tally of sacrifices I'm making for Mark's comfort, with no end in sight. The conversations about finding a compromise often end in frustration. Buying a new. Arguing that it's my desire, not his. He points out that he already pays, implying that I should be able to afford it on my own. This financial disparity only adds, making me feel like my concerns are secondary to his needs. I'm left in a state of constant exhaustion, physically and emotionally. I dread the early, knowing that they'll bring another round of discomfort and resentment. I feel trapped, stuck between my desire to support Mark and my need for a The arguments about our started as whispers in the early morning and quickly escalated. Confrontations. Mark would come home, exhausted and irritable, and the sight of me still in bed seemed to trigger something in him. "You're so selfish," he'd say, his voice thick with fatigue. "I just need a few. And you can't even give me that." His words cut deep, not because of their harshness, but because they felt like a dismissal of my own struggles. Was too bright, the love seat too small, and the air mattress a ticking time bomb with our cat around. But my protests seemed to fall on deaf ears. Mark's need for rest eclipsed everything else. "It's not fair," I'd argue back, bubbling over. "Why'd I have to sacrifice my sleep for yours? I'm exhausted too. I have to go to work in." Rubbing his temples as if trying to ward off a headache. "My job is demanding, and I need proper sleep to function. You can catch up on your rest later." These discussions often ended with one of us storming out of the room, the tension hanging heavy in the air. Was profound. I started to dread his return from work, knowing it would lead. My resentment grew with each passing day, each morning spent contorted on the love seat or lying wide awake, bathed in the glaring morning light. It wasn't just the physical discomfort that gnawed at me, it was the feeling of being unheard and undervalued. I felt like my needs were being cast aside, my discomfort deemed irrelevant. Mark's unwillingness to compromise only fueled my frustration. How could he not see that this was affecting both of us? Argument stands out in my memory. It was a Saturday morning, and I had stayed up late the night before, hoping to sleep in. Mark came home, his face drawn and weary, and immediately asked me to leave the bedroom. "Why are you being so difficult? Just go to the living room. It's not that big of a deal." "Not that big of a deal?" I shot back, my voice rising. "It's easy for you to say that. You're not the one sleeping on a love seat or dealing with the cat poking holes in the air mattress. I'm tired too, Mark. I'm exhausted." "Well, maybe if you contributed more financially, you could afford a better place to sleep," he retorted, his words like a slap. That comment hit me hard. The money, but about what it represented. My financial contributions been smaller, but they were still. I felt belittled, as if my efforts and sacrifices meant nothing. The tears stung my eyes as I. "That's not fair, Mark. I moved in here to support you, but I feel like I'm the one making all the sacrifices. You're not even willing to meet me halfway." He softened slightly but the underlying tension remained. "I'm sorry," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. "We'll figure something out. Maybe next month, when I have some extra money, we can look into getting." But next month felt like, and the promise was too vague to offer any real comfort. The cycle continued, the arguments becoming more frequent, and the emotional distance between. I started to avoid him when he came home, slipping out of the bedroom before he arrived to avoid the confrontation. I'd curl up on the love seat, my body aching, and stare at the ceiling, wondering how things had gotten so bad. The resentment festered, turning into a that ate away at the love we once shared. "Mark, we need to talk," I said, voice steady. "This situation isn't working for either of us. What if we buy a new couch that I can sleep on in the mornings?" He looked at me, a mixture of frustration etched on his face. "I've already told you. New couch right now. I'm paying for 70% of the rent, the bills, and both our car insurances. My salary only comes once a month, and it's tight. The love seat is killing my back, and the living room is so bright in the mornings. I can't keep sacrificing my sleep like this. Maybe we can split the cost of the couch." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't see why I should pay for something I don't need. You're the one who, so it makes sense for you to pay for it." His words stung. "We're a team, Mark. This is about finding a solution that works for both of us. I'm willing to contribute, but I can't afford the entire cost on my own. Can't we figure something out together?" Mark's expression softened slightly, but the concern in his eyes didn't fade. "You're uncomfortable, and that's not fair to you, but I really don't. Maybe next month, when I get paid again, we can look into it." Next month. The phrase felt like a curse all at once. It offered a glimmer of hope, but also meant another month of sleepless mornings. Still, it was something. Sure, it happens. I can't keep doing this. Mark, he nodded, though I could see the tension in his shoulders. I know. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, of the current situation, Mark suggested I try sleeping with earplugs and an eye mask to block out the light and noise in the living room. It helped a little, but the love seat remained a constant source of discomfort. My body ached from the cramped space, and I found myself waking up several times each morning, unable to find a comfortable position. Mark, for his part, tiptoeing around the apartment too. But the underlying issues remained. The financial strain and our inability to find a real solution loomed over us like a dark cloud. One particularly rough. I found myself in tears, curled up on the love seat, my body protesting every movement. I felt trapped, caught between my need for rest. Support. Mark, the air mattress, remained unusable. Already managed to puncture it once, and we couldn't risk. Mark walked in, seeing me in my state, and his face softened with guilt. I know this isn't easy for you. We'll get through this, okay? Just a little longer. His words were meant to comfort, but they only highlighted the growing divide between us. Keep this up? Like band-aids on a gaping wound, failing to address the deeper issues at play. In 2 weeks, the promise of next month became a distant echo, and my hope for a resolution faded. The sleepless mornings, it all felt like an endless cycle, with no end in sight. Something had to give, but what? And how much more could? Before it broke entirely, one evening, after another heated argument with Mark, I poured my heart out to my best friend Jenna. Over a cup of coffee, I explained everything. The sleepless mornings, the cramped love seat, the mounting resentment. Am I being unreasonable? I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. Am I really being selfish? Jenna listened patiently, her brow furrowing in concern. Honestly, it sounds like you're both struggling, she said finally, but it doesn't seem fair for you to be the one making all the sacrifices. Compromise, and it doesn't sound like Mark is willing to meet. Her words were comforting, but I needed more. That night, I posted my story on a popular relationship, detailing every aspect of our predicament. I poured out my frustrations, being undervalued, and my physical and I hit submit and waited. Or guidance. The responses came flooding in. They were varied, with opinions ranging from sympathetic, emphasizing the importance of his sleep and his financial contributions, of him pointing out the unfairness of his expectations and his unwillingness to compromise. One comment stood out to me. You deserve to be comfortable too. It's not just about the money, it's about respect and mutual support. Then maybe it's time to reevaluate the relationship. Another suggested practical. You can both chip in for, or consider rearranging to make it more sleep. As I read through, I began to see the situation in a new light. For wanting a comfortable place to sleep, my needs and well-being were just as important as Mark's. The constant discomfort and lack of proper rest were not sustainable, and something had to change. One particularly insightful comment. Something crucial. Communication is key. You need to sit down with him and have an about how this is affecting you. He'll be willing to find a solution that works for both of you. Buoyed by the support and advice from strangers, I decided to reassess. Let this situation continue to drain me. I needed to be more assertive, to stand up for my own needs and well-being. Armed with the new perspectives I had gained, I approached Mark. I laid out my feelings, clearly and calmly, explaining how they were affecting me physically and emotionally. I shared some of the practical suggestions from the forum, emphasizing that we needed to find a compromise for both of us. At first, Mark was defensive, but as I persisted, into second-hand couches, the living room, to make it more sleep-friendly for me. Complete solution. In the right direction. We picked up a second-hand couch and rearranged the living room. It wasn't as comfortable as a brand new couch, but it was a significant improvement over the love seat. The makeshift partition helped block out the light, allowing me to get a few more. As we worked together to make these changes, I felt a sense of hope returning. Mark's willingness to compromise and find a solution showed that he cared about my well-being. The process wasn't easy, and there were still moments but we were making progress. Over the following weeks, the atmosphere in and the resentment started to fade. We were learning to communicate better others' needs. For both of us, it wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a realistic step towards building a stronger, more supportive relationship. We still had a long way to go, but for the first time in a while, our future together, we were no longer two, but partners working towards a common goal, creating a home where both of us could feel comfortable, respected and valued. The biggest takeaway was the critical role of communication. Our initial conflicts had been fueled by a lack of honest open dialogue. Truly listening to each other and discussing our concerns without immediate defensiveness or dismissal, we were able to find common ground. It was a reminder that relationships are built the ability to navigate challenges together. As I lay on the new couch, more comfortable than I had been in weeks, I felt a sense of contentment and hope. Face whatever came next.